Good morning, Simon. I'm calling from India, so it's like afternoon here, but morning to you. And great to have you on this discussion with us around 3D and virtual sampling. So we look forward to having a very engaging discussion with you on sort of the adoption of 3D technology and virtual sampling as an outcome of that, and how the fashion retail industry is really sort of adopting this as a latest technology. And as we know that unfortunately, because of the pandemic, everything went into a turmoil. But what has happened is that at least one big fallout of the pandemic has been that the digitization journey of fashion brands, especially around e-commerce fashion, has kind of accentuated. It's become faster. More companies are looking at adopting 3D technology as a part of their overall journey, as a part of their process, and we'll talk more about it. So, we as FlixStock have definitely, felt that over the last few quarters, there has been a big shift in the fashion retail industry towards adopting 3D solutions, be it for virtual sampling or for on-model imagery, or there are a lot of other unique use cases that we have seen coming up over the last few quarters. And we look forward to discussing all of this. You have such a rich experience of this industry, and we are really looking forward to pearls of wisdom from your side, and how you have seen the industry transition from the good old days to where we are now. So thank you for taking out the time for coming on this webinar, and we look forward to a very engaging discussion with you. And Simon, if I can just request you that, we've been talking a lot, and I know you well now. We have had a couple of sessions, but it'll be good for the audience to, hear from you about your background and, more about you.
Yes, well, thank you, Raman. A pleasure to join you on this webinar and talk about 3D sampling. I mean, I've been in the retail industry for about 30 years, most of which I've spent in fashion itself, working across all the commercial functions, whether it be buying and merchandising or retail operations. I've also got quite a lot of experience in e-commerce and digital and marketing. So I kind of bring all those commercial and digital functions together. That's my USP as such. And I've gained that through, in a number of companies, both in the UK and internationally, big PLCs, small SMEs, and even large scale pure play marketplaces. So that's kind of my background in a nutshell.
Great. And, off late, how have you seen, this, we talk a lot about companies adopting the 3D solution, or rather than straight away say going to 3D solution, let me first talk about technology adoption, right, in the fashion retail space, right? So can we have some words from you around your experience as to how companies have really sort of adopted technology solutions, and what are the kind of benefits they have sort of got out of that?
Well, it varies very much in terms of technology adoption within the industry. You've obviously got the disruptors, the e-commerce pure plays who have been quicker to utilize technology and data to improve their customer service and their customer journey. Omni-channel retailers have in general been somewhat slower in terms of their adoption. There are numerous reasons for this. There's one of people want to do it the way they've always done it. There's another issue in terms of not knowing exactly what technology is out there and how it can help you. And then there's the fear of change that has prevented fashion retailers in particular from really adopting technology very quickly. However, the pandemic has brought it to the forefront, and the need for digitization and transformation is very much now in very much the retailer's priority, because it's transform or die, really, is where we're going. Online shopping, changing customer behavior, and changing customer expectations have meant that things will never be quite as normal as they were once.
Oh yeah, absolutely. While none of us wanted the pandemic, and it's really upset a lot of things worldwide, but at least one thing that has happened is that because of the pandemic, a lot of fashion retailers, and especially the e-commerce fashion retailers, right? They really felt the need to adopt technology solutions, as quickly as possible. With the pandemic, a lot of things were shut down, right? But businesses had to continue. Businesses had to survive, and for survival, one of the ways to survive was to adopt technology solutions. And probably what kind of fastened the curve towards adoption is, I personally feel that two things wherein I feel that technology adoption has been really quick, say in the last 1 year. One has been around on-model imagery. So wherein, the challenge was you couldn't have models coming into your studios. Even if you could open the studio, the first is that you couldn't even open the studio, right? But suppose you could still manage that. You couldn't have people coming into the studio. You couldn't have models, technicians, photographers, a whole lot of people coming in, right? And herein, companies still wanted their PDP imagery. You still had products that you wanted to take live on your website, but you had no medium, no way out, right? So one thing wherein we really saw technology adoption was in having your PDP imagery, in having your on-model imagery go live on your websites without going through an actual photo shoot, right? That's one thing where we felt that there was a lot of curiosity among brands from where we used to face resistance earlier, right? And secondly, the second big transformation that we saw towards this digitization journey was in terms of adopting 3D as a technology. So 3D as a technology, we've been seeing it, grow over the last few years. A lot of companies becoming familiar with 3D, talking a lot about 3D solutions. But I think in the last 1 year, there has been a significant development on that side. Companies are like embracing it with open arms now. Companies are like more welcome to understand how 3D as a solution has really been, so helpful, especially in these times of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Whether you have similar, thoughts around what I'm saying. Do you think this has been something that what I just mentioned is like similar to what you have, felt in the industry there, or how has it been?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. There's been a need to go to 3D fitting an imagery because of the pandemic and government restrictions, etc. But I'd probably add into that because of lead times as well, because especially in the UK, the first lockdown, very little happened for a number of weeks, if not months, and there was a certain amount of paralysis, mainly because people just didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And when you lose that kind of time within a product's lead time, life cycle, development cycle, then you need to catch it up if you're going to hit your relevant dates, etc. And obviously people were waiting to see what effect it had on demand as well. So orders weren't placed, etc. So when those things start to become more clear, and businesses wanted to proceed, obviously they needed to shrink the lead time. And one of the major benefits of 3D rendering is obviously the potential reduction in lead times in terms of the development cycle.
Yeah, yeah. So, Simon, I mean, there are lots of use cases that, as we talk to multiple different people in the retail industry, right, we see various different use cases for 3D technology in terms of adoption, in terms of the use case that, it is providing to different clients, right? Now, one of the most frequent use cases for 3D adoption that we have been hearing from different clients has been around virtual sampling, right? So, wherein clients, if we were to talk of the good old days, typically before a product really became, the final form of the product, it went through multiple iterations between the product team and the design team, the merchandising team, and the finally the e-commerce head, the boss, and sometimes the products really got chopped off right at the last moment, right? Because the final boss, the final e-commerce head wasn't liking those products. So products would typically go through so many iterations before they would really finally, see the light of the day. So all of this actually meant a lot of cost. You've got probably your factories somewhere in Asia. The companies are out there in Europe and North America, and the number of samples that would have to move to and fro, and amount of cost that the companies would have to incur airlifting these samples for the design team and the product team, going through all those multiple iterations. It was a huge, huge cost, and obviously time as well, because you need to have that much of an advance design cycle time to ensure that the product finally is ready before the season starts, right? So there has been a lot that companies struggled with on this front, and with virtual sampling, all of this you can shrink the lead times considerably. You can reduce the carbon footprint because you're not going to produce those many samples, the savings in cost of transportation, and so on and so forth. So, what are your thoughts around virtual sampling, and how do you think that virtual sampling can really, benefit the industry as a whole?
Well, I think you've mentioned some of the key benefits, Raman. I believe the fashion industry is estimated to spend between £6 and £8 billion on sampling. And 3D sampling has the potential to go from multiple iterations of a garment to just one, which potentially could, some estimates reduce the sample cost by over 65%. So that's £4 billion. In any fashion business, especially in such a disrupted competitive marketplace, needs to take such potential cost savings very seriously. However, you also touched on another very important part. One of the major effects of the pandemic has actually been highlighting environmental and social issues.
Oh, yeah.
And virtual sampling, because it requires potentially a lot less making of physical products, reduces the carbon footprint of samples getting ferried all across the world. It reduces obviously the use of natural resources as well. So there is two huge benefits. But not only that, I mean, in terms of actually producing designs, etc., there are considerable benefits. You got better visualization of design concepts. I mean, you can work them up, see if it works, etc., and then change it. So you can do iterations of concepts a lot easier and a lot quicker. It's very easy to move print placements or try different print placements or alternative colorways. It's a lot easier to see garments on multiple sizes to see what it looks like on the spectrum of sizes, as well as not necessarily using live models. But the other benefit we also touched on is about agility. The closer you make a decision about buying a product to selling a product, the more chance you've got of getting it right. Estimates vary, but if you're talking about a 2 to 3 month development cycle of a product, it can be cut to 2 weeks. It improves communication between designers and manufacturers, so there can be less issues from a communication perspective. You can improve accuracy with patterns and tensions, and even when things aren't necessarily right, you can digitally amend them. And then, from a future perspective as well, it opens up possibilities for customers to design their own products and they're to be manufactured before ordering, etc. So there are enormous amount of benefits of this technology.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that for the design team, it kind of gives them a lot of creative freedom, a lot of creative control, rather than, probably they were compromising earlier, because somewhere at the back of their mind, they were also sensitive to the fact that, hey, this garment has already gone through so many iterations, should I now, make some more changes or not? Whereas if you're doing that digitally, you don't even need to think about it, you can just go ahead and plan for it.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's so many unwritten rules. If you're working on a product and if you haven't got it right after 3 or 4 goes, bin it. And really irrational rules like that, but there's a kind of rationality to it. But it allows you to play around, and by that playing around, hopefully it means that you can come up with better designs really for the customer.
Yeah. And you talked about the carbon footprint part, and I mean, I can tell you that out here in the US, right, there is this, I mean, between in the fashion retail industry, environmental social governance, right, ESG, environmental social governance is a buzzword right now. It's more like an industry regulation, and all the companies want to be ESG compliant. It's gone to that level wherein your end customers, I mean the consumers, now really look at the fact that hey, is this brand for which I'm buying the garments, are they ESG compliant or not? I mean, your end consumers have become that conscious. So it's really important for companies these days to to be sort of talking the right language to their consumers. So ESG compliance is one of them, and 3D sampling, I mean virtual sampling, is one of the ways wherein the companies can really reduce their carbon footprint. So
yeah, I mean, it's the same in the UK. ESG is becoming more and more important. I only see that trend continuing. Brands need to have ESG at the heart of their purpose, and they need to walk the walk, not just talk the talk, because they will get found out. And we're entering an era of a lot more what I would call social commerce. So people will make decisions not just on price, not even just on value, being the combination of price and quality, not even just based on inspiration or desire, but also are they purchasing with a set of values in mind, and that needs to be the heart, very much so, of everybody's purpose and strategy in fashion retail going forward. You only have to look at the amount of sustainable brands and marketplaces popping up to realize that not only is it a growing market now, but it's forecast to be a huge market. And that's been driven by the money boys as well. People don't want to invest unless you are you have a sustainability ESG purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. But Simon, one thing that makes me curious here is that theoretically speaking, when we talk about virtual sampling, and when we say that we talk about all the good benefits of virtual sampling, and it kind of makes a very logical explanation as to why companies should be adopting, but still we find that some companies probably face some challenges around adopting virtual sampling. Uh, what do you feel, what's really the thought process, how, the team at a fashion retailer is really looking at it, when they see that, I have got to adopt this, what are probably some of those challenges that you feel, they might be feeling, or they might be thinking subconsciously in their minds?
Well, I mean, there's challenges around any kind of technological change, and that's one really of cultural transformation. And I think that's generally to do with education. People don't necessarily know what the possibilities are and the possible benefits, and when it's explained to them, you start to get a lot more adoption. So there's that whole issue with regards to adoption, and you're probably dealing with a cohort that aren't that experienced in terms of using virtual 3D design, and not necessarily the most technologically driven cohort either. So you get barriers from that perspective. And then you've got some practical concerns, because any system isn't perfect. Obviously, the old system was far from perfect, and there are some, challenges that need to be overcome, but can be overcome with 3D sampling. So, the fact that you can't necessarily see how individual fabrics behave, etc., can be a concern to some, but again, that can be overcome. And then you've got all the work that's required up front, and people aren't very good at work that's required up front in terms of making sure all the fabrics are in the system and all the components, etc., so they can actually use them as part of their designs. So that's kind of some of the barriers that are often discussed when talking about virtual 3D design. And then I haven't got time is usually one of the others. But they're all very human reactions to something that's new. However, the benefits are so enormous and substantial from a business cost benefit, but also from an environmental perspective, that it's a bit of a no-brainer.
So it's more like, as the awareness increases, and as the early adopters starts using the technology more and more, I guess that's really what will kind of speed up the process, in terms of more and more brands and more companies adopting that. We are seeing a lot of early adopters right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say so, or you would have thought so. But certain companies in Europe adopted it, way back in 2012, 2013, Adidas, for instance, and that didn't really start an avalanche of other retailers wanting to adopt it. There are a lot of priorities on a retailer's to-do list, and it probably never quite got to the top. And it's taken the effects of a pandemic to move it up the priority list, perhaps.
I know. Yeah. And Simon, I mean, from a cost standpoint, uh, is I mean, from where we understand it as a cost benefit analysis, we definitely feel that the 3D virtual sampling process does help companies save cost in their overall, sampling. I mean, the overall sampling cost, everything associated with that, right? Uh, that's really how we perceive it from the solution provider side. But I would be curious to understand the perspective again from a retailer's side, that how do they really feel it? How do they really perceive, virtual sampling and the kind of cost impact really that it has? Do they really perceive it as something that saves money for them, or is there still some question mark in their mind around that?
There are question marks, bizarrely enough, because when you're taking £4 billion out of the cost, you would have thought that that would be business case enough. Calculating the business case in itself can be problematic. And then getting the cost benefit can be also problematic. I'll explain. A number of occasions when we've been working for organizations and discussed 3D sampling, the cost of a garment usually includes an average amount of samples from the manufacturer. And that average number of samples usually is based on historical averages, i.e., are you good and tight over your sampling, or do you go through loads and loads of iterations? So the manufacturers add it into a cost that's given for a particular garment. Getting them to take that cost out, or even tell the retailer what that cost is, can be problematic. So it's problematic estimating it in the first place, and it's also problematic obtaining it back from the manufacturer in order to justify the investment. Also, one of the other major cost benefits is obviously, 2 weeks to get a design to manufacturing ready versus 3 months. Again, it is difficult to estimate what the hit rate benefit of that reduction in lead time is. There must be one, because obviously making a decision nearer to the time will be more accurate. But until you do it, you don't necessarily know exactly how much by. So when you're developing a business case for 3D sampling, you come across all these counter arguments. How are we going to get money back from the manufacturers? How do we know how much our hit rate will improve, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
I mean, that very good point that you brought about around the design cycle being 2 weeks, say, versus 2 months. Right now, I mean, the intangible benefit, especially in the beginning, because when you are new, you just can't, really kind of do the cost benefit analysis there. But it's a no-brainer, that the intangible benefit of, being much, much faster to the market than, your competition would give you a huge advantage. I mean, if you got your design cycle down to 2 weeks and your competitors are probably still at 2 months, you can imagine the kind of advantage that it brings. You're so ahead of your competition to, your time to market the product. It kind of gives you a huge advantage. I mean, so.
And there's another sustainability aspect to that as well. Obviously, if your hit rate goes up, then waste goes down. It means less inventory. It makes you more agile, and obviously, you have less markdown. Therefore, you are in effect more sustainable and using less of the Earth's resources. So, I mean, I completely agree from a rational perspective. It is a no-brainer. However, putting numbers to them always creates a little bit of debate.
Yeah, sure. Right. So another point, Simon, around virtual sampling has been around, the perception of quality per se, right? When I say quality here, I'm specifically referring to how you perceive a virtual garment vis-a-vis a physical garment that you would probably be receiving from the factory, right? So again, from a product design team or the product development team or the merchandising team, how would they really perceive the quality of a virtual sample vis-a-vis a physical sample that they can actually touch and feel? That in my mind could also be a huge factor in people's mind, when they're looking at adopting a new technology. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are issues with that because you obviously can't touch and feel and see, fabric properties and things like that with regards to a virtual sample. But we're not talking about having no samples ever. We are talking about virtual samples to do, in effect, the grunt work. Plus, there are other benefits of virtual sampling over physical samples, the number of iterations you can do, the ability to get more accuracy with fit on a variety of different sizes to see how the product virtually looks on a variety of different samples. We need to check ourselves with reality of physical samples. I don't know how many sign-off meetings or development meetings I've been in, but a lot, where there's a sample on the wall and somebody says, well, that's what we want to buy, but the neck line's not quite right, and the print placement's not quite right, and it's not in black, it's in purple, and it needs to be 2 inches shorter. So and it needs to have a butterfly sleeve. So I often look at them and go, well, so it looks nothing like that then. So we do really need a cold towel moment with what the reality of physical samples actually is, and that's no criticism. That's the development cycle of a product, and virtual sampling can help you with until you get the final sample, you won't necessarily know exactly how it feels.
Yeah, and I think you really brought out one physical sampling completely, right? It just means that you're creating lesser number of physical samples. Probably if you were creating 10 to 15 physical samples earlier, you can probably bring that down to 1/3 or 1/4 of that. So instead of say 10 samples, you're probably creating 3 samples, right? So you're still creating physical samples, But by bringing it down by 70 or 80%, you have saved a significant cost, right? And the cost that you mentioned about, upwards of £6 billion. So a 60, 70% or an 80% saving in that over a period of time is a significant saving in cost that I think companies can have. And that important point that we are not saying do away with physical sampling completely. It's just about gradually bringing it down, and it's a very comfortable transition out for themselves, that over a period of time, as they adopt 3D technology, they can reduce, they can possibly have targets for the design team that over a couple of seasons, the company can actually, the design team can actually down the number of physical samples. I guess that's probably a better way of adopting the technology rather than an abrupt adoption, which could be more painful.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree that the gradual utilization of it. I mean, you've just got to weigh that up with how much work it needs up front. But in terms of new technology, a slow, cautious adoption over a number of stages without being too slow, so it dies, is always better than cold turkey, in my view. And there's actually one more benefit on a slightly lighter note that we didn't touch on, and that is it would significantly reduce the number of days the poor buyers admins need to spend in the sample room, in the boxes, sourcing that sample room, because it is the job from hell. And that they could actually use that time to add value and learn their trade, etc. So you've also got lots of, not necessarily as tangible benefits.
Absolutely. Great. Simon, any other, benefits around virtual sampling that come to your mind? Any other, significant benefit that you feel, could be very helpful to design teams?
Well, I mean, all I would say is that you're kind of future-proofing yourself, because we're not too far away from, customers personalizing their own products and them getting made. We're not too far away from virtual shops and augmented reality, changing the shopping paradigm yet again. And unless you've gone to 3D sampling, 3D rendering, that leap will be even further for you to make. So technology isn't slowing down its pace of development, it's speeding up. And the longer that you kind of wait to at least try and play catch up, the harder it will be crossing the chasm as such. So that was what my advice and word of warning as such. And there are certain other benefits that you kind of will start to build up a pipeline or a library of internal assets and internal designs that can be kept and reused and amended. So it provides a way of ideas and concepts, and that can be a rich source of development, in future seasons. Yeah.
Hey, I think there are some really valuable points that came out of this discussion with you, and I thoroughly enjoyed our discussion, and 3D technology is at the forefront right now, in terms of digitization or adopting digitization by fashion brands or fashion retailers, and we looking forward to more and more companies, kind of adopting 3D technology and seeing the benefits out of it. I mean, you just mentioned about, Adidas and, how they adopted a good 7-8 years ago. And, credible big brands have gone, down that path. So we're quite sure that more and more brands would be taking that up. And thank you so much for your time. And I think there were some
Thank
really good points that came up around, you know, around the cost benefit analysis, around the time to market, around how the product design time can come down to weeks instead of months, and also in terms of the cost benefit, and also very importantly, as you mentioned towards the end, about not really doing away with physical samples, but with reducing the number of physical samples, right? Hey, great, Simon. I mean, it was awesome talking with you. And any final parting points from your side? Anything you would want to, touch base on? Anything that you feel that, we as a solution provider could really, be, any other thing that you feel we can incorporate in this in this technology adoption?
No, not really. I think that's enough. I mean, thank you very much for inviting me to speak with you. I too have enjoyed the webinar very much, and I wish you luck convincing those retailers in terms of adoption. And I hope the viewers have found the session informative and insightful.
Thank you so much, for your time. And we at FlixStock, we kind of pride ourselves in being a fashion technology startup, and we have been working with a lot of clients both in Europe and in North America, and this journey has been fantastic for us in terms of seeing technology adoption in the fashion and the retail space. And as we mentioned, it's not just the 3D journey that we're talking about. It's also about technology adoption for their PDP imagery. And we've seen a fantastic, journey there in terms of, prospective clients being more and more willing to adopt the latest technology. And maybe I can wind up this session by quickly taking you through a small presentation on some of the latest that we have on 3D. Just allow me to share my screen. Great. So, when we start this discussion for 3D solutions, we kind of bring up this quick pop quiz here, that which out of these is a 3D generated garment. And I mean, I'm just skipping the slide, but the point is that when you look at that slide with three images, you can't really make out which is a 3D generated garment. The technology has reached that stage that you cannot make out a virtual garment from an actual physical garment. And by the way, this is the one which is the virtual garment here. And what FlixStock can do is it can not only generate this garment virtually, it can very well drape that garment onto a physical model to have an on model image of that product. Very simple how we do it. We just need three things from a client to create the virtual garment. Give us the design files, the CAD files of the garment. Give us the tech pack and an image or a rough sketch of the garment as you see here. And with all these three things, what we can do is we can create this garment virtually. And the spinning shot of the garment that you see here, that's the garment that we created virtually. This garment may not even exist physically. It's a virtually created garment. And from there, we go one step further, and then we can drape that garment onto a human body or an avatar or a mannequin, right? I mean, whatever is a client's requirement, be it on an actual physical model or an avatar or on a mannequin, we can provide you with all the options that you want. And that garment can actually be converted into an on model image. First, the garment gets created virtually and then gets converted into an on model image or a mannequin image like the one that you're seeing right now. So in a nutshell, that's a three-step journey that you have, that just from the basic information, those three things that I talked about, we can actually have the garment and then the on model image of that garment. Then the journey does not end there. It kind of becomes more interesting from there. You actually need that on model imagery in multiple poses or probably different styling requirements. All of that is possible with the 3D technology, and you can have the same garment on multiple models or on multiple different poses. So very importantly, what this particular slide is capturing here is that you can actually have the same garment on a lean or a petite model, and you can very well have the same garment on a plus size or a large body model. So that's the kind of inclusivity that the 3D technology can provide you. And needless to say, the thing about diversity also gets taken care of, because you can have the same garment on a model, on models of different ethnicities. So diversity and inclusivity both get taken care of very seamlessly with the 3D solution. Uh, as FlixStock, we can actually take you to the next level, wherein we can provide you with social media or lifestyle imagery, which you might need for your banner page on your website or for Instagram or for Facebook. And we can actually provide you with that kind of lifestyle imagery of the same garment. So you can imagine the journey that the garment does not even exist physically, and still you have on model imagery, you have the mannequin imagery, and you have the lifestyle imagery of that garment available to you while the garment does not even exist at all. So that's the kind of advantage that FlixStock provides. Here are just a few more examples of different kinds of products. I mean, I just showed you one dress on a female model, but it's not just that category, showing you many more categories on which we can incorporate the same technology. Sportswear, casual dresses, any other examples, formal wear, we can very well design different types of garments and provide you with the on-model imagery. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. And Simon, it was great having you on the call with us. And thank you so much. I think great having you. We'll probably look at having another session with you. It has been so informative listening to you and understanding the perspective as to how a fashion retailer would perceive the same technology. We being the proponents of the technology, we are so passionate about it that we always think only about the positive side. But it's very important to get a realistic understanding of where the technology really stands. Where the rubber hits the road, that's really where it matters.
No, it's been good, Raman. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good day, Simon. Bye.
You too. Bye.